Welcome to Paranormal Nightfall.
Jack Pritchard loved to fish. The Louisiana Bayou was his sanctuary, a sprawling web of wetlands reaching as far as he could see. Every Saturday, the rickety boat he'd inherited from his father would glide smoothly over its waters. The quiet electric motor allowed him to hear the rhythmic hum of cicadas and the occasional call of distant birds. A great break after a tumultuous week at the factory. However, this Saturday was different. The sun seemed brighter, and the air was thick with humidity. Today, the bayou was unusually quiet. All of the usual sounds of life were distant and the waters seemed restless. He brushed off the unease, attributing it to the oppressive heat. Anchoring his boat in the center of the pond, he allowed the familiar act of preparing his fishing gear to soothe him. Lost in the simple joys of fishing, Jack's thoughts began to wander. He remembered the tales his father would tell him as a boy. Stories of the bunyip that lurked beneath the waters, waiting for unsuspecting souls. It was scary to a boy of 11. In later life, Jack always assumed the tales were to keep him safe from alligators and make him respect the bayou. He did respect it and learned to always be wary of his surroundings. He was jolted out of his memories by a sudden movement below his boat. Looking down, he noticed ripples expanding outward, disturbing the bayou's mirrored surface. Then, as suddenly as it started, the water returned to its tranquil state. Curious, he peered deeper into the water, trying to discern what might have caused it. But only his murky reflection stared back. Feeling a bit parched, Jack pulled open a root beer. He relished the cool taste as it washed over his tongue. Drinking alcohol was never an option for him while fishing, especially in the bayou's solitude. Plus, the last thing he needed was an unexpected visit from the game warden questioning his choice of beverage. His relaxed mood was quickly interrupted when his line went taut. Setting the soft drink down, he tugged on the line, meeting strong resistance. After several minutes of back and forth, his prey broke loose. As he reeled in the line, a large object rose from the water. About the size of a small amulet, he grasped the muddy object in his hand and reached over the side to wash the mud off to reveal a talisman of a fierce creature carved in rock. He placed the object on the bottom of the boat and resumed his hunt. Moments later, an aggressive tug on his fishing line, he instinctively gripped his pole, trying to control the force at the other end. The jerking was powerful enough to jolt his boat sideways. The taut line made it evident that he had hooked something massive, something that was fighting ferociously for its freedom. A recording-setting catfish? Or just a gator? Sweat beads formed on Jack's forehead. Minutes felt like hours. Jack's arms began to tire, his grip weakening. But he was determined, curious to see the creature that possessed such might. The water around his boat started to bubble and churn, a tail rose from the water and cut the line. The bayou was now silent. No cicadas. No fish. Nothing. The thick, swampy air weighed down on Jack, and he felt he was being watched. With trepidation, Jack stared at the water. He had come here countless times, seeking solace in the embrace of nature. But now, the familiar bayou seemed alien and menacing. Putting on a heavier line, he was determined to reel in the whopper. He threw the line in and immediately faced with another pull on his rod. A strong, deliberate force that slowly dragged his line deeper into the bayou. Remembering his prior encounter, Jack readied for another fight, but this time he was determined to win. Bubbles formed at the end of the line about 50 feet out. Suddenly, the water broke with an earth-shattering roar. Towering over Jack was a creature. Its vast green scales glistened, its eyes, cold, black orbs, were filled with anger and hate. Its gargantuan limbs splashed the murky water, and its thick tail swung, creating massive waves that lifted the small fishing boat into the air. It was the creature his father warned of. It was real, and here it was walking slowly toward him. Frantic, Jack threw his fishing rod into the water, hoping to distract the beast. He fumbled with his boat's motor, praying for it to start. But the trusty motor wouldn't start. He fumbled with the switch, trying it several times as the creature, perhaps sensing his panic, inched closer, its massive jaws slowly opening to reveal rows of razor-sharp teeth. His heart in his throat, Jack desperately tried the motor again. This time the whirl of the small electric came to life. Now with the creature almost upon him, he sped away, grateful for the creature's slow plod through the bayou mud. Finally, he reached the shore, his boat scraping against the mud with force. He didn't dare look back until he was on solid ground. Panting heavily, he glanced back at the pond. No sign of the creature, just the placid waters of the bayou reflecting the red hues of the setting sun. But the eerie silence, the whispering reeds, and the foreboding atmosphere suggested that the creature was still nearby. It took an eternity for Jack to summon the courage to load his boat onto the trailer. His hands shook uncontrollably, and his mind replayed the encounter over and over. Without looking back, he sped home, the bayou's mysteries now more a curse than a charm. Days later the memory was as fresh in Jack's mind as if it had happened moments ago. Every night, he'd lie in bed, the ceiling fan whirring overhead, casting moving shadows that would morph into the massive scaled creature in his half-sleep state. The once comforting sounds of the bayou outside his window became a cacophony of haunting reminders. Frogs croaking sounded like the creature's growl, the gentle splash of water made him bolt upright, fearing it had come for him on land. People in town started to notice Jack's frazzled appearance. Dark circles underlined his eyes, his face was gaunt, and he often seemed to be staring into the distance, lost in his own world. Whispers spread, some saying that he had gotten involved in voodoo, while others said he had seen the ghost of the bayou. The more pragmatic among them chalked it up to stress or some undisclosed personal issue. But then, Alessander, the local bartender and member of the Appaloosa tribe, approached him one evening. "Jack," he began, offering him a cold drink, "I've known you for years, and I've never seen you like this. What happened?" With hesitation, Jack began recounting his tale. At first, Alessander listened with a mix of skepticism and amusement. But as the story unfolded, his face turned pale. "You've seen the bunyip, haven't you?" he whispered. "You believe me?" Jack responded, surprise evident in his voice. Alessander nodded, leaning in closer. "My grandfather told me stories of the bunyip, tales passed down by my people through generations. The object you removed from the swamp. You must return it. It will calm the creature." Determined to rid himself of the haunting memories and restore order to the bayou, Jack knew he had to return the object. That night, equipped with a flashlight and the talisman, he went back to the bayou. He stood at the edge of the water, the nocturnal sounds of the bayou surrounding him. Hours passed, but there was no sign of the creature. Just when he began to doubt himself, thinking maybe it had all been a hallucination, the water began to ripple. The familiar bubbling began, and in the moonlight, the creature emerged. The bunyip didn't seem threatening now, it just stood there. Jack took the talisman and threw it to the creature. It caught the stone talisman and turned away, diving into the murky waters. The old boat sits in Jack's garage now. He refuses to return to the bayou in it. He satisfies himself with fishing from the pier in town, still haunted by his encounter.